We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern promised that the man responsible for last week's deadly mosque massacres would face the full force of the law, as she vowed never to utter his name.
More than 1,000 people are feared to have died in a cyclone that smashed into Mozambique last week, while scores were killed and more than 200 are missing in neighboring Zimbabwe.
A nationwide blackout, unprecedented in scale and length, are worsening the psychological descent for Venezuelans as they watched cash machines and water pipes shut down for lack of electricity and their homes plunge into darkness.
And Paris has come top of a ranking of the world's most expensive cities alongside Singapore.
Mga Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern promised that the man responsible for last week's deadly mosque massacres would face the full force of the law, as she also vowed never to utter his name. Take a look.
He sought many things from his act of terror, but one was notoriety, and that is why you will never hear me mention his name. He is a terrorist, he is a criminal, he is an extremist, but he will, when I speak, be nameless. And to others I implore you, speak the names of those who were lost, rather than the name of the man who took them. He may have sought notoriety, but we in New Zealand will give him nothing, not even his name.
Australian Brenton Tarrant, 28, was captured by police and has been charged with 1 count of murder, but Ardern assured Parliament other charges would follow.
One person at the centre of this terror attack against our Muslim community in New Zealand. A 28-year-old man, an Australian citizen, has been charged with 1 count of murder. Other charges will follow. He will face the full force of the law in New Zealand. The families of the fallen will have justice.
Ardern has promised reforms to New Zealand gun laws which allow Tarrant to legally purchase the weapons he used in the attack, including semi-automatic rifles. Now, she has said the measures could include a ban on some semi-automatic rifles and a weapons buyback scheme. At present, anyone over the age of 16 and considered to be fit and proper to possess firearms can get a General A category license in New Zealand. Now, this allows them to buy firearms, including the AR-15, which was reportedly used by the Christchurch gunman and is frequently the weapon of choice in mass killings in the United States. According to New Zealand police data from 2017, the year Tarrant obtained his license, there were 43,509 applications for a firearms license with a 99.6% approval rate.
That's just so strange, because in the earthquake everyone at the same time was in danger, but with this one, I don't know, it's almost worse because there's so much evil associated with this act, you know. It seems to me that, you know, the only valid reason to own a gun is maybe self-defense and also to hunt. You know, you don't need semi-automatic weapons for that.
And I think they have to be very careful about how they change the laws to still allow people to use guns for what they need to use them for in this country, such as pest control or farm work. But yeah, if they change things too much and affect them, I think the people will be upset about that. But there are certain guns that shouldn't be out there in the population. I don't think they fully understand what's going on, and I don't think they really fully understand now what is actually going on behind the fence over there. So I think in time, as they start to comprehend that a bit more, we'll have to discuss it further with them, talk about it, and work our way through that.
Ardern has said that details of the government's proposed law changes on gun ownership will be announced by next week. But she indicated that gun buybacks and a ban on some semi-automatic rifles were under consideration. New Zealand's patchwork of gun laws have also allowed the import of semi-automatic rifles, of which there are about 15,000 legally in circulation, according to police estimates. The lack of a national register of gun ownership makes such estimates more difficult. The New Zealand Police Association has long called for reform of the Arms Act and tougher measures to close loopholes on acquiring semi-automatic weapons.
Dutch police on Monday arrested a Turkish-born suspect over a shooting on a tram in Utrecht that left 3 people dead in what officials said was a possible terror attack.
When I saw a trauma helicopter land on the field back at my house, I saw one land on the field, and then I went to look up front here, and I saw everything, all the police and all the ambulances and the trams. And a few minutes later I had a message, a friend of mine telling me that there's been a shooting. Yeah, I saw policemen, directing the traffic, and just lots of ambulances, and I must say the police were doing a really good job. Everything was really well organized, and just more and more police cars coming down here.
Police had earlier launched a huge manhunt for Gokmen Tanis, 37, issuing a picture of the suspect gunman and warning the public not to approach him following the attack, in which 5 other people were wounded. Mosques and schools were closed across the Netherlands' 4th largest city following the bloodshed before heavily armed officers surrounded a building and arrested him. Dutch authorities said they were still investigating a likely terrorist motive for the shooting, but Prime Minister Mark Rutte said they cannot exclude other motives, including a family dispute.
Ik weet niet hoeveel het er zijn.
Nou, als u de schaal ziet van wat daar gebeurd is vandaag. 3 doden. En 3 mensen die in kritieke toestand zijn. En ook nog andere gewonden. En je ziet ook wat een enorme impact dat heeft op het hele land. Maar zeker ook op Utrecht en omgeving. Dan is dit in alle opzichten een aanslag. Wat het motief is achter de aanslag. Of dat terroristisch is of anderszins. Dat weten we nog niet. Daar kunnen we niks uitsluiten.
The drama began when gunfire broke out on the tram near the 24 October Plain Square, sending people fleeing from the tram and triggering a huge police response. One witness told broadcaster NOS they saw an injured woman running out of the tram with blood on her hands and clothes, who then fell to the ground. Police then launched a massive manhunt, during which the suspected gunman is believed to have carjacked a Renault Clio before being arrested about 7 hours later, around 3 kilometers from the attack site. Dutch National Counter-Terrorism Chief Peter Jaap Albersberg said authorities had lowered the terror threat in Utrecht 1 notch from the top level after the arrest of the main suspect for the shooting. The suspect's father, Mehmet Tanis, and his son must be punished if found responsible, Turkey DHA agency quoted him as saying. He said he had lost contact with his son, having returned to his homeland in 2008 after divorcing his wife. DHA reported she remained in the Netherlands with Gokmen. Dutch police said Gokmen Tanis was known to them, while NOS reported that he was in court in a rape case 2 weeks ago. The Netherlands has been largely sparked the kind of attacks which have rocked its closest European neighborhoods in the past few years, but there has been a series of recent scares.
In other news, at least 89 people are known to have died after flash floods and landslides tore through Indonesia's Papua region, with the toll expected to rise further as rescuers hunt for dozens still missing, according to the National Disaster Agency on Tuesday. Now, scores have also been injured in the disaster triggered by torrential rain on Saturday, with some 6,800 people evacuated to temporary shelters. The military has taken up the grim task of putting mud-caked corpses into body bags, with the search hampered by mountains of debris, including rocks and fallen trees. 74 people remain unaccounted for. Around 150 suffered broken bones, cuts, and other injuries. The government has issued a 14-day state of emergency in Papua, which shares a border with independent Papua New Guinea on an island just north of Australia. Flooding is common in Indonesia, especially during the rainy season, which runs from October to April.
A cyclone that ripped across Mozambique and Zimbabwe has killed at least 162 people, with scores more missing, and brought flash floods and ferocious winds washing away roads and houses. Watch this.
timber, guys.
Imba bado yatodirika ndo ndatodirikirwa mwana wangu wanga ari pasaidi ari pamubhedha saka ndinokwanisa kubata mwana anditozivi kuti mwana wakabudawo sei. Ini ndipo ndakadirikirwa ndakandozondoona guwe ratosvika ndo rakandipushira kuti ndibude kunze. Ndabuda kunze ndakararamba ndichindoeredzwa nemvura. Ndaeredzwa nemvura ndarasirwa kusaidi.
Mori yangu handisi kuziva kuti zvakamira sei iko kumberi kwacho kwandikuda kuenda. Nokuti network haisi kuita, hapana transport, marodhi ese akavhara akazara mavhu, kumwe akacherwa nemvura, saka ndakutadza kuziva kuti ndofamba sei.
Hang on, just watch this.
Meanwhile, in an update, more than 1,000 people, according to authorities, are now feared to have died in the cyclone that smashed into Mozambique last week, while scores were killed and more than 200 are missing in neighboring Zimbabwe. The city of Beira in central Mozambique bore the cyclone Idai's full wrath on Thursday before the storm barreled on to neighboring Zimbabwe, unleashing fierce winds and flash floods and washing away roads and houses. Aerial photographs released by a non-profit organization, the Mission Aviation Fellowship, showed groups of people stuck on rooftops with floodwaters up to window level. The scale of damage in Beira is massive and horrifying. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society said 90% of the city of some 530,000 people and its surrounding area has been damaged or destroyed, it said in a statement. The situation is terrible. The scale of devastation is enormous. That is according to IFRC's Jamie Lesure. In neighboring Zimbabwe, meanwhile, Idai left 98 dead and at least 217 more missing, according to the Information Ministry. Families started burying their dead on Monday in damp graves. The storm swept away homes, ripped bridges to pieces. It left destruction that Acting Defense Minister Perrin Sherry said quote, resembles the aftermath of a full-scale war. Some roads were swallowed up by massive sinkholes, while bridges were ripped to pieces by flash floods. Meanwhile, UNICEF in a tweet said almost 850,000 people, around half of whom are estimated to be children, have been affected by the severe flooding in Malawi and Mozambique, with the numbers set to rise.
Over 250,000 children in the Kasai region of the Democratic Republic of Congo are suffering from severe acute malnutrition and needs life-saving treatment, says the UN Children's Fund, or UNICEF.
Possibilité qu'elle va osanshila mwana mekuma oda chintoto livumuke ya uvimba
tobimika kamaza mabonde to tumaki na biso mbango tobimika biso.
La malnutrition continue toujours, ça n'a pas diminué.
Between 2016 and 2018, large number of people were displaced from their homes due to violence and insecurity in Kasai, which saw child rights abuses and high levels of malnutrition among children. The situation has been complicated by the return of some 300,000 Congolese people who had fled to Angola to escape the violence, which is putting extra pressures on health centers, schools, and other basic services in Kasai. UNICEF's assistance to the population has included the treatment of severely malnourished children, rebuilding classrooms, and providing educational material. UNICEF spokesperson Yves Willemot said that a continued focus on funding for aid programs across the Kasai region is needed.
Un petit là, si t'en as un comme ça là, non, les gros bleus.
The news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Health is our most
Welcome back. Manila Water announced that its customers will now have longer hours of water availability daily as compared to last week. The water concessionaire made the announcement a day after its president and CEO, Ferdinand de la Cruz, attended the House panel hearing on the water crisis. Now, during the hearing, he apologized to Manila Water's 1.6 million customers in Metro Manila and Rizal for the severe water interruptions that had crippled businesses and homes for more than a week. In a statement on Tuesday, Manila Water explained that the longer water service hours was because of the implementation of its rotational water supply scheme, which began on Thursday, March 14. Citing what it said was its latest data, Manila Water said that over 93% of Metro Manila's East Zone now regularly receives water supply. It said that it had been making calibrations in its network distribution that has resulted in the continuous improvement of water restoration. On Monday, during a House panel hearing on the water crisis, Manila Water President Ferdinand de la Cruz also, as earlier said, apologized to the public for his company's failure to provide water to its millions of customers.
A Myanmar court on Tuesday sentenced a prominent ethnic Rakhine leader to 20 years in jail for treason, a verdict likely to intensify anger amid fighting between the ethnic group and the army. Mong, the former chairman of the Arakan National Party, which is renowned for hardline views against the Rohingya Muslim minority, was sentenced for treason and defamation over an allegedly inflammatory speech in January 2018, a day before deadly riots. State-backed media at the time said he railed against the central government for treating the ethnic Rakhine as slaves and said it was the right time for the community to launch an armed struggle. The following evening, Rakhine protesters briefly seized a government building and police opened fire, killing 7 people. Mong and a fellow detainee writer, Wai Hin Ong, who also gave a speech at the same rally, were detained days later.
The head of Japan's Olympic Committee said he would step down in June as French authorities probe his involvement in payments made before Tokyo was awarded the 2020 Summer Games. Tsunekazu Takeda cited the age limit on the job, which the committee had previously been expected to revise to allow him to stay on until the Games. Takeda has come under pressure not to seek an additional term when his current mandate ends in June after it was revealed that French authorities believe they have evidence of corruption in the awarding of the 2020 Games in Tokyo. Now, current JOC rules require candidates for the top post to be 70 or younger at the time of their candidacy. But there had been rumors the committee was considering a change to allow Takeda to stay on through 2020. Now, in recent months, however, the investigation into Takeda has become an unwelcome distraction for organizers of the Games. With less than 500 days until the opening ceremony, Takeda has denied any involvement in corruption and again protested his innocence on Tuesday.
The recent scandal involving fraudulent college admissions elicited reactions, and parents and students across the country. Eagle News spoke to some people about the issue, and here's what they had to say.
If the parents are acting unethically, that's not a good tone to set for their children, and I feel like it's very disappointing that these parents think it's okay to use their money and power and prestige to make their kids believe that they can just pay off people to get what they want. In reality, these colleges have spent years and years building up their reputation. A lot of the colleges that these kids want to get into are renowned worldwide, so I don't see how this one incident could diminish the reputation of these colleges irreparably. It's not right that these people think that they could cheat the system even for a second and take away that spot from someone who worked hard and honestly to achieve success.
Personally, I'm not very surprised because, I mean, you've already heard stories of whose parents paid for a library to get them in. So, I mean, it's just a joke in our society that rich people just get the things that they want for their kids, which is not, I don't think it's the right way to do it, but I just think that in society, that's what we expect. I'm shocked personally that we're actually doing something about it, which that was what personally shocked me.
Infuriating and at the same time very disheartening, knowing that there's an easy way for parents to actually put their kids into college without actually understanding the hard work that many students have to actually apply for. There are some who will apply naturally, some that who don't actually have to apply, and others who have a very difficult time because either they're residents or non-residents. It's just very disheartening.
Some students actually work very hard and they just come in easy pass. It's not fair. It really isn't. Pretty much as they're saying like, oh, who cares about grades and how much you worked at? It's all about the money when it shouldn't be. Since majority of the schools are funded by organizations to promote the schools, and these parents are just coming in giving money without working, it's very unfair.
I believe yes. Yes, because they need to take responsibility, because if we're going to keep allowing this type of behavior and acceptability to continue, we shouldn't. We have to let every student know that everybody's here fairly in order to enroll into a school.
If they're pretty much getting a slap on the back if they're like, oh yeah, only your parents are being accused and you're still going to school. That doesn't set well for many of the students who work very hard trying to get into these schools.
I think getting into college is already such a competitive field, so the fact that parents are doing this puts kids at a bigger disadvantage, especially those who may not be financially capable of even going to college. So I think it just puts kids at a harder position to get into college and makes it unfair. A part of college admissions is some schools claim to be financially blind, so I think the fact that they're accepting bribes kind of just diminishes that whole fact, because they are looking at people who have money and are taking that. So I think it does diminish college's credibility.
So that's unfair for the other kids that don't have parents that can have money to buy off the people and admissions. So, and it's harder for them to get in.
I find that really unfair, considering there are actual people out there working super hard to get to the specific GPA to get into a specific university, even though they sometimes struggle to even have the money for it.
It's probably one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard, but it's not so surprising if you look at the way people are treated and how classist the United States is, and how people with parents who have more money are treated versus those that don't have the access to the same things that people who are affluent do. Yeah, they should be expelled, because it's you have no right to be there. It doesn't matter how much money you pay to go to school. You earn your way in like the rest of us. I have friends who had to do so much in order to get to the schools that they went to. Thank God they got them. I have my best friend. She graduated from Duke, and the process to get into that school was difficult. And she doesn't come from an affluent family. It is beyond. They should be expelled. And honestly, why are you even, there's different college, people decide to go to the most expensive colleges because it's what's look good on paper. But if you can't get in, go somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with going to a regular institution.
That's very wrong, because coming from an immigrant family, my dad, he was not able to finish college, and he worked so that my mom could finish college. And they both worked very hard to have their kids get into college, finish college. And I mean, I know my parents would do anything for me to get into college. So, I mean, I have somewhat understanding for these parents wanting a good future for their kids, but at the same time, that's not the right way to do that, because that in itself is teaching a lesson to your kids that if you want something in life, you can do it in a way where you can cheat yourself into it, which is, I mean, obviously not appropriate.
I think it's truly unfair because there are many other students just like me that are working so much harder to to get our proper education and to do the extra mile to actually apply into college ourselves. Many universities are hard to get into, so knowing the fact that this can happen says something about the many universities out there. So maybe with stricter policies and stricter ways of getting into the university itself, maybe it can help diminish that problem.
We should, sometimes you really like them to be there, and sometimes I guess to the point that they have to cheat, to the point that they have to buy off in order for their children to be there. I don't think that's right. Because even though they were not caught and their kids are successful, I don't think you can be 100% happy because you're cheated. Because as a parent, you have to set the standard. You have to tell them the right way how to get into the school. You need to work hard. You need to study hard. Because all these kids, there are a lot of kids who are very intellectual that they deserve to be in the school. And for a parent to cheat and you take the spot of their kids is not right.
It's very frustrating to see parents think that they can cheat a system because they have a lot of money, they have a lot of power, and they take advantage of that, and they basically stomp on other people and use Machiavellian techniques to get their children where they want them. And I'm very, very disappointed, and it needs to be stopped. I do believe that the children and the parents were all complicit to the same exact crime, and the parents need to be punished by whatever means that the law deems fit, and the children should be expelled.
Eagle News International will be right back.
Welcome back. Warner Brothers Studios chief Kevin Sujihara, who has been dogged for weeks by reports of an affair with a young British actress, he allegedly helped secure roles, is set to step down, according to the Warner Media Group. Warner Media Chief Executive John Stankey said in a statement, quote, Kevin acknowledges that his mistakes are inconsistent with the company's leadership expectations and could impact the company's ability to execute going forward. He said, without explicitly referring to media reports, that the married 54-year-old studio head had an affair with a 26-year-old actress Charlotte Kirk in 2013. The studio boss tried to use his clout to get the young actress roles, although without much apparent success since she only had minor parts in 2 Warner movies, 2016's How to Be Single and 2018's Ocean's 8, according to reports in the Hollywood press. Sujihara's lawyers have denied that he intervened in casting decisions for the films. Warner launched an internal investigation into the reports but has not yet named a replacement for Sujihara, who had recently taken on more responsibilities after a sweeping reorganization of the company previously known as Time Warner following its takeover by telecoms giant AT&T.
Britain's government cannot submit its Brexit deal for another vote in Parliament if it is the same or substantially the same to the one already rejected by MPs, says the House of Commons Speaker.
If the government wishes to bring forward a new proposition that is neither the same nor substantially the same as that disposed of by the House on the 12th of March, this would be entirely in order. What the government cannot legitimately do is to resubmit to the House the same proposition or substantially the same proposition as that of last week.
British Prime Minister Theresa May held crisis talks with her ministers Tuesday after the Speaker of Parliament threatened to derail her EU withdrawal plan just 10 days before Brexit Day, leaving her strategy in tatters. May is still hoping she can get the divorce agreement she struck with the European Union through Parliament before March 29, despite MPs having rejected it twice. Weeks of chaotic political deadlock in Parliament have already forced May to concede that Brexit must be delayed amid fears of the economic shock or of an economic shock if Britain ends its 46-year membership of the EU with no new arrangements in place. But she had been hoping to ask EU leaders for only a short delay when they meet at a Brussels summit on Thursday, warning that without a deal, any extension would be lengthy. Pro-Brexit newspapers in Britain condemned Burkow as the Brexit destroyer, and reports suggested May is now planning to ask for a 12-month delay.
Major oil producers led by Saudi Arabia agreed to keep working together to prop up crude prices, but said they would decide only in June on whether to extend production cuts.
In consideration that market fundamentals are unlikely to materially change in the next 2 months, the JMMC adopted a recommendation to forego the full ministerial meeting in April and instead schedule a JMMC meeting in May ahead of the OPEC conference meeting on the 25th of June, during which a decision will be taken on the production target for the second half of 2019.
Meeting in Azerbaijan's capital Baku, members of the OPEC Plus alliance said they would continue coordinating efforts to stabilize the oil market through production cutbacks. But they postponed the planned April meeting and said a decision would be made in June on whether to extend production cuts into the second half of 2019, once the impact of U.S. sanctions on Iran and Venezuela is more clear. In a joint statement after the talks, members of the alliance stressed the need to restore market stability and prevent the recurrence of any market imbalance, shorthand for keeping prices from dropping too low.
Since the second half of 2018, we have shown the global market and the global community that OPEC Plus can take decisions to increase production when the market calls for it and when the fundamentals call for it. But we can also take decisions the other way of withdrawing production when we see inventories building and the market balance being disturbed.
Venezuelans queue for hours at their local banks to get 6,000 Venezuelan bolivars, equivalent to less than $2 US, the maximum amount that banks allow to take out on a daily basis, and that most people end up spending on public transportation.
Bueno, yo aspiro sacar 6.000, como está diciendo la gerente del banco. Y mi destino, bueno, yo tengo que ahorita cancelar mis cajas del CRA, pues. Cancelar mis cajas del CRA, pagar mis pasajes. Y el resto pagar a mi hija, que tengo que darle para los pasajes y todo lo demás.
Y esto me alcanza para 2 días. Entre pasajes y la chuchería de la niña, ya, listo. Un pan son 3.000. Un pan son 3.000. O sea, la mitad de esto. Y lo demás. 2, 3.
Venezuela is suffering from a major economic crisis. An estimated 2.7 million people have left the country. Poverty has soared and there are shortages of food and medicines.
Meanwhile, a nationwide blackout, unprecedented in scale and length, worsened the psychological descent for Venezuelans as they watched cash machines and water pipes shut down for lack of electricity and their homes plunge into darkness. Take a look.
De verdad que es algo bastante angustioso, bastante deprimente todo lo que estamos viviendo. No tenemos efectivo, no tenemos comida, no tenemos salado, no tenemos nada.
¿Sabes qué? A mí siempre me llegan pacientes. Entonces toda la zona, los que viven.
Venezuela está sufriendo de una gran tristeza. Una tristeza que temo pueda convertirse en una depresión muy pronto, con niveles de ansiedad que ya llegaron a ser crónicos.
Paris has climbed to the top of the world's priciest city for expatriates, tied first with Singapore and Hong Kong, according to a survey Tuesday that named the capital of strife-torn Venezuela as the cheapest. The French capital was the only Eurozone city in the top 10, rising from second most expensive last year and from 7th position 2 years ago. Paris is extremely expensive to live in, with an average 2-piece business suit for men setting buyers back around $2,000 and a typical woman's haircut costing $120, it found. Only alcohol, transport, and tobacco offer value for money compared with other European cities, the survey said. The Economist Intelligence Unit, or EIU, said it was the first time in the more than 3 decades of the survey that 3 cities were equally ranked top after Singapore led the chart outright a year earlier. The top 10 list was dominated by Asian and European cities, with Osaka and Seoul in joint 5th and joint 7th places respectively, and Zurich 4th, Geneva joint 5th, and Copenhagen joint 7th, also in the elite club. North America was represented by the U.S. cities of New York 7th and Los Angeles tied 10th with Israel's Tel Aviv. Currency appreciation, inflation and devaluation, as well as political upheaval, played a part in this year's rankings, said EIU, which surveyed 133 cities worldwide.
Eagle News International will be right back. Stay tuned.
Hanggang alas 5 ng hapon.
Homelessness leads many people to mental illnesses. An estimated 27% of the 53,000 homeless residents in Los Angeles County suffer from some kind of mental illness, and NGOs are monitoring their health. Take a look.
Rocky was 56-year-old when she found herself living on the streets for the first time in her life, penniless and hungry, feeling that the rest of the world had left her behind. She quickly slid into a deep depression, a mental state common among people experiencing such a traumatic change in their lives. At that time, 3 years ago, her fragile psyche sapped her energy as she sought a place to pitch her tent in a park in Los Angeles County, which has the highest rate of homelessness in the United States. The county has about 53,000 homeless residents, 27% of whom suffer from some kind of mental illness, be it schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or just severe depression like Rocky's.
You know, I think there's a various degree of mental health issues we see out here. There's not one particular diagnosis, but one thing that I've noted from just my time here is there is a lot of trauma that goes on. Just in the situations, maybe getting robbed, getting raped, getting beat up.
With hair graying and wrinkles forming on her face, Rocky, now 59, said it hasn't been easy. She said she has never been homeless before. Rocky is the name she adopted when she hit the streets. She has forgotten what it's like to have truly good night's rest. She sleeps with a camping lantern that lights up at the least sound and says she carries a firearm that she uses to scare off anyone who tries to rob or attack her in the night. California boasts the 5th largest economy in the world, but has the highest poverty rate in the United States if the cost of living is taken into account. There is no part of Los Angeles that doesn't have its own homeless community. From the tourist-filled Hollywood Walk of Fame to the city center, there are pockets of down and outs clustered in squares, parks, and along highways. Dirty and dressed in rags, they can often be seen talking to themselves, screaming or swaying to and fro, all things that experts says indicate a mental condition or possibly drug abuse. Experts agree that the first step towards addressing mental illness among the homeless is simply finding them a place to live. Todd Lipka, head of the NGO Step by Step, which helps homeless people with mental illness find places to live, said Housing should be the foundation for recovery, not the culmination of recovery. He said, if you have a mental illness, recovery in the street is almost impossible because you're spending all your energy simply surviving. Other groups such as LA Family Housing, which services the area where Rocky lives, also look for apartments for people on the street in an area that has sky-high cost of living.
We need more permanent supportive housing to be built, and we need it now, not 10 years from now. But the longer we leave them out in the street, the longer it's going to be. It's going to be harder for us to transition them into housing because they're so used to the outdoors.
Both LA County and the city itself are passing measures to spend billions of dollars on building social housing, but the projects have not been completed yet. The legislative measures also aim to improve social services that are currently overwhelmed. Rocky received the green light for accommodation 6 months ago through another group that specializes in helping people with mental illness find homes, as well as getting them access to therapy. Rocky's story is full of tragic twists and turns, and she's not keen to relive them.
Well, the most I'm looking forward to moving into a new apartment is hot water. Because it's really a big chore to heat up water out here. And the running water and a kitchen table.
Happy birthday to the city of Toronto, Canada. The city marks 185 years since the town of York was officially incorporated as the city of Toronto on March 6, 1834. Our ABC Canada correspondent Patricia Kadai reports from Toronto.
Toronto may be lovingly called the Six, but our beloved city is 185 years old today. And this weekend, Torontonians are here at Nathan Phillips Square to celebrate the city's birthday, Toronto style, with food trucks, shopping, a day market, a live dance show, and did I mention food? The Celebrate Toronto Festival features about 30 local vendors, 12 food trucks, and live entertainment all through the day.
Celebrate Toronto, it's a non-profit organization. Celebrate Toronto was started by Michaela Doria, who's the founder, and she started the organization to celebrate Toronto's birthday. So Toronto turned 185 this year.
There are on-site contests, interactive activities, and giveaways sponsored by local radio stations and companies. The festival features local artists, entertainers, and businesses, bringing the city together at the heart of downtown Toronto.
Toronto is my home. I mean, I've traveled through Europe and across the world, and there's no place like home. It's like wherever I go, my heart beats to go.
And this year, there is an open collection of food donation as the organizers partnered with Daily Bread Food Bank to help those who are in need. About 185 years ago, the City of Toronto was created through a legislative act separating Toronto from the town of York. Since then, the city has grown and merged with other nearby townships, becoming the city we all now know and love.
I hope to see a lot of my generation contribute to the betterment of the city, because it's a great city.
Today is a celebration of everything that has made Toronto what it is now. History, arts, music, food, culture, all brought together by the multiculturalism and diversity.
Yeah. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles, and we're one with 25.